another live Patriots Q A. Things are going to get exciting today because it was a very busy Sunday. Felt like a football Sunday when
It really did.
news broke about Patriots signing a deal with Cam Newton for a year, and then shortly after they received their discipline from the whole taping the Bengals sidelines debacle. So there's a lot to get to today. Evan, how are you?
I'm doing well. This has been a kind of a whirlwind of a couple of days. We're not really used to this kind of news cycle in June. Usually this is sort of the dead period of the NFL. So the Patriots gave us a little bit of gift with Cam Newton to give us something to talk about.
As usual, drop your questions in the live chat. We'll get to as many as we can. And Brady Anderson, he's starting things off with the burning question everyone wants to know. Evan, what are your thoughts, your immediate reactions to the Cam Newton signing?
Well, my first reaction to it was, okay, as exciting as this is for the player name, right? Cam Newton, absolute superstar in this league. That's extremely exciting. This is a lot more juice to it, especially for us media people, than Jarrett Stidham starting next year for the Patriots, and something that I think Patriots fans can get really excited about. And then I dug a little bit deeper into the film and what I published today. And now I'm really excited about this move because if you look at the way that the Panthers were running their offense, it was a little bit more vertical than what the Patriots typically do, but they're actually using the same verbiage in an Earnhardt Perkins system that New England uses. So Nerve Turner's offense over the last 2 years, especially for Cam Newton, was pro style. It's the same kind of verbiage, the same way that we're, going to talk out plays with New England is the same way you would talk out a play with Carolina. And then you go from there and you see that Cam is really not that Russell Wilson type of scrambling quarterback. He's not somebody that's going to run around back there like a madman and make 6 guys miss and then throw a ball 50 yards down the field on something like a playground or a broken play. That's not his style. His style is actually standing in the pocket with that rocket arm and distributing the football on time and kind of in rhythm and making in rhythm throws. And that definitely sounds a little bit more Patriot-like than I think a lot of people think of when they think Cam Newton and they think of the way the Patriots offense typically runs.
Next question is, do you think Cam Newton's the automatic starter just by signing with the Patriots? Obviously, ton of experience, former NFL MVP. You got to think that he's not going to be Jarrett Stidham's backup.
It's tough for me to see a scenario, Sierra, where a healthy Cam Newton doesn't win the starting job, because I'd look at it and I try to find out, okay, what is Jarrett Stidham better at right now than Cam Newton? And really, when you go down the list, he doesn't have a better arm. Maybe you could make the argument or make the case that he's a little bit more accurate of a passer than Cam Newton is, but he's not the athlete that Cam is. He doesn't have the experience that Cam has. He doesn't bring that sort of it factor either to the huddle that Cam Newton brings. So it's tough to find something that makes Jarrett Stidham better than Cam. And I think that really the best case scenario, it's not the worst case scenario to have Jarrett Stidham sit for another year. I think if you look at the timetable that the Patriots really planned out here, the Stidham plan was not necessarily to have him start this season. It was probably to have him start next year when Brady walks or retires or something like that after this season. The Patriots were intending on bringing Tom Brady back. They don't bring Tom Brady back. So now this bridge year with Cam Newton kind of gets you back on the right trajectory, the right timeline with Jarrett Stidham.
Who does this help? Obviously, the offense is going to look a little bit different now if Cam Newton is indeed under center. Michael wants to know, does Cam help N'Keal Harry or Sony Michel more?
Well, I think that N'Keal Harry and a lot of these receivers that you look at these style of offenses where the quarterback is a factor with his legs, it usually benefits guys that live after the catch, right? Where that's their best trade is yards after the catch. They're basically glorified running backs, right? And you can run shorter schemes. You can run shorter passing concepts with them, not rely so much on timing and getting open with route running by using scheme, right? So I think that he can really help Harry, but I think that he helps the running game exponentially more than anything he does in the passing game. And the main reason why is that defenses now are going to have to deal with the fact that the Patriots are +1 on every single running play because they have a quarterback threat now that can run the football. So you think of it this way, right? You put 8 guys in the box and the offense has 7 blockers, right? The defense always wants to have a +1 advantage in order to stop the run. That's the number one thing they're going to do. Now, if they put 8 in the box and you only have 7 blockers, and they seem to have the advantage. But now the Patriots have 8 against 8 because Cam Newton can also run with the football. So that's where the numbers advantage kind of comes into play. And that's what running the football and the running game is all about, is which offense or defense can get more guys in the box, either blockers or defenders playing the run. And now the Patriots have an extra body there that they can use to hold the backside defender, make a guy kind of hold that edge on the backside, knowing that Cam could just as easily keep the ball as he could hand it off to the running back.
And Ashley wants to know what an offense would look like with Cam if he does indeed get the starting job. Do you think they would use more RPOs than what they would have done with Stidham, or use them on a limited basis so he takes fewer hits?
I think that they're going to have to listen when you sign Cam Newton. Similar to Lamar Jackson, it's a kind of the same argument. If you take his legs away from him and you take his mobility away from him, then you're really taking away what makes him effective, right? He's not going to be the same guy just being a standstill pocket passer. So you're going to have to incorporate some of that mobility. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that Cam needs to carry the ball 65 times next year. He just has to be a threat to take off. He just has to make the defense play honest and play disciplined and respect the fact that he's Cam Newton and he could take off with the football. That doesn't necessarily mean that he has to carry it, right? So that's the big advantage that you have there. Where the offense goes from here, I think a lot of their passing concepts could get a little bit more vertical, right? You can have kind of a situation where you're running more comeback routes, more deep post types of patterns, more things down the field and then coming back to the quarterback rather than horizontally stretching the defense, because that's really what Cam is best at. But I think that overall, the passing game should stay pretty much the same because Cam's system in Carolina was relatively similar to what the Patriots run. It's going to be that running game that's going to be a huge factor and a big change because the Patriots now finally have a quarterback that they can play even with.
You know, the recent concerns surrounding Cam was his foot injury that he's still recovering from. The presumption is he's going to be healthy, but the question is, if he's lost his ability to run, how useful would he be?
It's a good question. I think that that's really, if his foot is at the point where he can't run, then we're getting to the point there that I think that Jarrett Stidham has a better chance to really compete for this starting job, because Cam's accuracy issues, his throwing mechanics, I won't get too into the weeds, or we can get into the weeds about throwing mechanics, but really dating back to the 2011 draft with Cam, his throwing mechanics and his footwork in the pocket have kind of been a disaster. And really what he does is he puts all the pressure and all the stress on his arm. And that's why his shoulder blew out, is because his arm is always getting the brunt of that throw instead of getting kind of power and generating that kinetic energy from his lower body, from his feet up. He's really just focusing just on that arm. And that's why that shoulder has been such an issue. So I don't know if he's really the same guy if he can't run. And I think that Jarrett Stidham will have a much better chance to supplant him and win the starting job anyways if Cam is really just a stationary passer.
Leon wants to know, do you think Cam Newton will have a good relationship with the young receivers and how he changes the offense? Because obviously we were going from one extreme to the other with Tom Brady to Jarrett Stidham. Now we've got a middle ground with the 31-year-old Cam Newton.
Yeah, I think the fun thing about this is you look back at some of the iterations of that Carolina offense. I'm looking specifically when they were really good, 2014, 2015. And you look at the type of receivers that they had: Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess, Greg Olsen, obviously at tight end. And we're talking about big bodied pass catchers. And the big thing that with Cam is that he's not afraid to throw one up. He's not afraid to just toss one outside to N'Keal Harry or Kelvin Benjamin back in the day, or Devin Funchess, and just let them make a play at the catch point, right? Whether that's boxing a guy out, high pointing it, back shoulder fades, things like that. He's not afraid to make those types of throws. I think the great news is for the Patriots is that N'Keal Harry needs that kind of quarterback that's kind of just willing to let him go out there and make a play. I think that Cam is really used to working with guys that aren't necessarily big time separators, you know, guys like Kelvin Benjamin. So although I hope that N'Keal's career kind of goes a little bit better than Kelvin Benjamin's does long term, I think if you look at, you know, Kelvin Benjamin's rookie season in 2014, that would be an ideal second year for N'Keal Harry, and maybe Cam Newton can get that out of him. I'm really excited to see how N'Keal works with, or how Cam works with these young receivers, especially N'Keal Harry, because I think that he's a little bit more familiar with kind of just letting guys make plays, you know, throwing the ball up, letting him make a play, and not necessarily needing the guy to be wide open or get open on his own with route running like Tom Brady did.
We know Cam signed for a bare minimum deal with a base salary of just over $1 million. Incentives could get him up to around $7.5 million. But we've got a couple questions here from Joel and Dexter, both wondering if the Cam signing will move anyone around, cause anyone to get traded or cut, and both bringing up Joe Thuney and if there's any developments on that situation.
Well, we haven't officially gotten the numbers on Cam Newton's guarantees in his contract and how exactly his incentives escalators are going to work. So we don't know 100% what his cap number is going to be in 2020, but we do know that it's going to be more than what the Patriots have, right? So they have about $650,000 in cap space. They're going to have to make a corresponding move to free up enough money to at least get Cam under the cap now to make the signing official. Until then, the signing isn't going to go on through the transaction wire and it won't be an official move. But with that said, the guy that I'm looking at when I look back at this picture, it really depends on how healthy Cam is. But Brian Hoyer's contract, you can walk away from it with no dead money. Do the Patriots really need to carry two veteran quarterbacks along with Stidham, or can they just go into into training camp with just Hoyer, with just Cam and Stidham? I think that's pretty safe of them to do that. They can free up the money they need to sign Cam by cutting Hoyer. I hate to see him go because I think that he's really a guy that can be valuable to this team in a way. But I think that that's might be the way that this Patriots team goes about this to free up the cap spaces, maybe to release Brian Hoyer.
Well, these next couple of questions are all surrounding that question. Ashwin says, I'm sure Evan's dreams of Jamar Smith making the roster are crushed now, but do you think the team carries Hoyer, Cam, and Stidham if they choose to carry three QBs?
I think it really depends on Cam's health. If Cam is 100%, whether he's the starter or not, I think it really matters for him in terms of, being that backup and being that security blanket to Jared Stidham. And do they trust him to be there, to be that guy in case Stidham goes down or Stidham doesn't play well or whatever the case may be? If they trust that Cam is 100% enough to be that security blanket, then I don't think that they need to carry Hoyer on this roster. And if they're going to carry three quarterbacks, to me, I would rather carry a guy like Jamar Smith who does have some upside, right? Hoyer, we know who he is. He's not an NFL starting quarterback. He's a career backup. Jamar Smith probably isn't an NFL starting quarterback either, but at least he has the talent and the upside to potentially develop into one down the road. So I would much rather see them hold on to the young guys, get some, kind of upside there in that position as they work with Cam Newton to maybe bridge this gap, right? And then you have 1 year of Cam, you have a nice gap year with Stidham and whoever it is, Jamar Smith, Brian Lewerke, kind of learning behind and holding the clipboard. And then we move on from there next season and we kind of reset.
One more Cam question here before we move on to a couple different ones. If the Patriots have a bad start, Joel's saying 2-5 or worse, do you think Cam will get traded, or do you think the Patriots will feel comfortable swapping in Stidham? What would the scenario be there?
Well, I think that at some point, Joel, you kind of run into the point where if you're 2-5, you're probably not making the playoffs, right? And you got to start thinking about the long term and thinking about the future. And if we get to that point and Cam's been the starter and they've had a rocky start to the season, then it really doesn't make much sense to keep playing him, right? And that's really when it starts to get to the point where you probably want to get Jared Stidham some snaps and you probably want to get him in the mix and see what we got with him so that you're not really. I think the biggest issue with not playing Jared Stidham this year is you don't know 100% what you have with him moving forward, right? So maybe getting him on the field a little bit this season at least gives you an avenue to see what you have with him in a live regular season game, which we haven't seen yet other than the mop-up time against the New York Jets last year. So I think that if they start the season rocky with Cam as a starter, then Jared Stidham will be quickly inserted to see what they have with the young guy, and we'll move forward from there.
Switching gears here for a minute, I'm sure we'll get a couple more Cam questions before we sign off. Will the rookie linebacker Josh Uche take the Patriots pass rush to the next level this season?
Well, I do like Uche a lot, and I love the idea of having Uche and Winovich on the field at the same time because that's a ton of speed, a ton of athleticism. That's going to be really tough for opposing tackles to handle on the edge. So I'm looking forward to seeing both of those guys as kind of bookend pass rushers. It's 3rd and 10 against the Bills. You got Josh Allen in the pocket, and you got Uche and Winovich screaming off the edge on both sides. Guys that are athletic that can go and chase Josh Allen if he gets outside of the pocket, but they can also rush the passer and pin their ears back and get after the QB for sacks and quarterback pressures and things like that. Can Uche take it to the next level? Well, their pass rush last year, although it was a lot to do with scheme, blitzing, stunts, line games, things like that, it was pretty good last year. So I don't know how much better he's really going to make it than it was a season ago, but I love the upside. I love the longevity that they're going to have with those two guys for at least the next 3 years, and Winovich's case in 4 years for Josh Uche. They have been for the next 3 or 4 years, they got a nice young group of outside linebackers that can really rush the passer.
Dexter wants to know, out of these 3 undrafted free agents, Will Hastings, Isaiah Zuber, and Jeff Thomas, who has the most realistic chance of making the roster?
Well, after the Cam signing, I think that this really solidifies it even more, and that is Jeff Thomas's stock on this Patriots team. Because when you have a quarterback like Cam, the one thing that you want to be able to do offensively, because you're going to use his legs as a danger, as a threat so often, is you got to have somebody that can stretch the field, right? You got to have somebody that can take the top off the defense. In Baltimore, it's Hollywood Brown, right? He's the type of guy that they have out there that can really, especially out of the slot, get vertical on defenses and at least make them play with a safety deep in case that receiver gets over the top. If you play a team that has a running style and a running quarterback with no deep threat, then everybody's going to walk up, right? You're going to have everybody within 12 yards of the line of scrimmage. So you got to have somebody, whether it's Thomas, whether it's Damari Bird in that role, that's able to really stretch the field a little bit for them so that defenses have to back off a little bit and respect the deep pass.
And a question here that we did a video on yesterday that you can find on our YouTube channel here at Patriots Press Pass. How does the Cam Newton signing affect Jarrett Stidham's development? Do you think it was a direct correlation with the Patriots' confidence level in Stidham?
No, I don't. And the big reason why is because they went all off season pretty confident that they would be okay if Jarrett Stidham had to be the starter. And the only reason why we're talking about Cam Newton in the Patriots uniform is because he just signed for the veteran minimum plus incentives as a former MVP. That was the market. And Bill Belichick read the situation perfectly. He waited, he was patient, and he said, here's our offer. If you get a better offer, go with it, or we'll try to match it or whatever. But this is what we can offer you. And they waited and they waited and they waited, and they finally got their guy late on in the process. And I think that's a really great way of looking at it. Is we're not going to overspend. We're not going to give up trade assets. We're not going to give up draft picks to go and get a quarterback. We're just going to wait until somebody falls in our lap. And that's what they kind of got with Cam Newton. So I don't think it's a detriment to Stidham at all that Cam is here. The other reason being is that you look back at his preseason last year, and there was certainly a lot of its impressive moments for Stidham last year. Great arm talent, good job reading coverages, had a great feel for the offense. The moment wasn't really too big for him. All of those things were definitely true. But the one thing that Dante Scarnecchia pointed out that now I think resonates even more after the Cam signing was that he likes to hold on to the ball too long in the pocket. Talking about Stidham here. Last preseason, holding on to the ball for nearly 2.8 seconds on average before throw, taking 9 sacks. That's sort of a kind of a young quarterback thing. On top of that, turnover-worthy plays. He only had a couple of picks in the preseason, but he had a couple of more that bounced off defenders' hands or should have been intercepted that weren't. And when you look at the big picture, you see that Stidham, thrusting him into the lineup right now, probably wasn't ready. Right. He probably isn't ready for it. And I think that moving forward, having a guy like Cam that can take some of that pressure off of him actually won't be the worst thing in the world for a young quarterback. And you kind of look at some of the other situations in the past, like a David Carr is an extreme one, or a Jared Goff, Mitchell Trubisky, a lot of these guys that got thrown into the fire and it didn't necessarily work out for them. So another bridge year, I think, is really going to be fine for Stidham. And the Patriots look at it from a scouting perspective. They grade their board and they look at it and they say, what can this player be? What is our projection for this player in our system in year 3? They don't look at it, what can this player do now? They look at it 3 years down the road. Is he going to be a starter? Is he going to be a role player? How is he going to produce in this system? And with Jarrett Stidham, I truly believe that they looked at him as a third-year guy, a guy that could probably start by his 3rd season in the system. Cam gives him that luxury to wait until that 3rd season.
We'll get to a couple more questions, so ask them if you got them here. Can you talk about how Jedd Fisch will impact the Patriots' offensive schemes? I know you wrote about this recently.
You can throw it out the door now.
I was going to say, maybe things have changed now with Cam Newton signing.
I don't think Cam Newton's going to be running bootleg play action from under center too often. I mean, he has the legs for it. So maybe they kind of reinvent him a little bit. His last year in Carolina, he took 88% of his snaps in shotgun, right? This is not a guy that plays under center too often. Now, they can still do a lot of the same things from shotgun that they would have done under center with their play action passing game, especially their power play action passing game, because you can still run power from the gun, right? The problem is that you're not going to get that wide zone action the same way that you would from under center if the quarterback is back off the line. So I think it's going to be a very different system. But the one thing I will say with Jedd Fisch is that he is a footwork guru. He's a guy that loves to work on quarterback mechanics, throwing mechanics, footwork in the pocket. And that's probably the one area where you give a little pause with Cam. And that's really what led to a lot of his accuracy struggles over his career, is that his footwork has always been a little bit sloppy. His throwing mechanics have always been a little bit sloppy. So maybe Jedd Fisch can fix that up along with Josh McDaniels, and you might get a different quarterback.
Couple questions today about the new offensive line coaches since Dante Scarnecchia retired.
Yeah, Cole Popovich, Carmen Basilio, both guys really well thought of in the Patriots organization. I think they have kind of a leg up in this situation than maybe what the Patriots dealt with Dave DeGlumia. Let's just call him Goose. It's a tough one to pronounce. When they had him in 2014 and 2015, everybody remembers the AFC Championship game in Denver in 2015 when the offensive line was a disaster and DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller killed Tom Brady almost on that day. I really can't believe he got up as many times as he did. We all remember that, but I think the big thing with Popovich and Priscillo is that they've had tutelage from Dante Scarnecchia for the last couple of seasons. In Popovich's case, is since 2016, and in Priscillo's case, since last year, they studied under Scar. They were able to kind of pick his brain, get all those types of things, and really understand Scar and understand his process and why he is so good at what he does. So they have that advantage. You know, it's kind of like Jared Stidham or Jimmy Garoppolo learning from Tom Brady. They've learned from the best. So I think that they'll be okay. They'll have the same system. They're not going to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. But really, it's the only area that I would say that I have major concerns because they have such an experienced veteran offensive line, a bunch of starters that have played a ton of snaps in the league. The only concern is the development of the young guys, right? How is Yadni Kajust? How is Yelda Froholt? How are those guys going to pan out now that they don't have Scarnecchia, fine tuning everything for them? But in terms of the starting five, those guys are going to be all set.
Last question for today about the second piece of news that came out on Sunday night, and that was the Patriots' discipline for having TV crew tape the Bengals sidelines last season. They got fined just over $1 million, and they lose a third-round draft pick in next year's draft. Your opinions on the punishment?
Oh boy. Okay. So this is two things, right? One, this is like Brad Marchand, right? Where he's a repeat offender and no matter what he does on the ice, if he does something illegal, everybody is going to freak out about it and everybody's going to lose their minds. And he's probably going to get a suspension or a fine because he's done it before. Whereas somebody else that has a clean record could do something worse and not get that same suspension or fine. So this is a classic, you've already done it. So this is sort of a repeat offender type offense. But truly, losing the third round pick is one of the most blasphemous things I've seen in a long time out of this league. And that's saying a lot because they do a lot of dumb things, Roger Goodell. Okay. But losing the third round pick, the football operations suffering for something that had absolutely nothing to do with the football operations side of things makes absolutely no sense. Find the organization, limit their access, make sure that Patriots.com doesn't have the film crew access for a year like they had, but taking that pick away for something that Bill Belichick literally had zero say in or had zero idea about is, to me, just flabbergasting. It's punishing football operations for a non-football operations offense just because they wear the same logo. And that right there is all you need to know about what the league thinks of the Patriots, what the league the message they want to send about their sort of investigation here, if you'll call that, as it took 6 months for them to find absolutely nothing and then still give the Patriots what they gave them. So it's very disappointing to see the draft pick go because that's a valuable pick. That's not a 6th round pick that they took from the Patriots. That's a potential top 100 pick that the Patriots will not have for something that had absolutely nothing to do with football operations.
Well, I'm glad we asked because you had some thoughts.
Just a few.
We didn't get to your question this time. Come back here next week. Next Tuesday will be our next live stream here on our Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. We have a ton of Cam Newton coverage already up on our YouTube channel. We have more coming out this week, so be sure to check that out. Everyone enjoy your 4th of July holiday weekend. Thanks for